coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio. This is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier journalist and top 100 Latino in 2021 via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, Fernando Uribe. Hope you all had a wonderful Mother's Day weekend. Again, a shout out to all the moms for everything that you do. Hopefully you're all staying healthy and vaccinated. And again, folks, let's try to get back to normal here in 2021 and beat this pandemic once and for all. So as always here, there is a lot to discuss. So let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here, if the day ends with the letter Y, then you can rest assured that we're probably coddling illegals here again in the state of New Jersey. So, as reported in recent weeks by various news outlets, which include Insider NJ, the New Jersey Globe, even, obviously USA Today, guess what? Governor Phil Murphy is looking to take a portion of the federal stimulus package from Washington, D.C., and appropriate to a $40 million fund to, yes, you guessed it, to help illegals. Now, let me just sort of unpackage this a little bit so you can understand what's going on. And one of the things that really is disheartening about this is that, it seems that since taking office, or even before that, during the fall of 2017, when then candidate Phil Murphy was running, yes, I know, the state of New Jersey was going through Chris Christie fatigue, and certainly that created an awful scenario for then Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno, who was running against then former Goldman Sachs executive Phil Murphy. And you know what? He didn't lie to you, because he said he was going to be as liberal as possible, and he's lived up to everything he promised in terms of far-left policies, and of course, coddling illegals in New Jersey is no exception. But one of the things, folks, that, again, reminds us about how tone-deaf the governor is, along with the left in the state, those especially in the legislature, is that they keep forgetting, for example, that instead of taking $40 million, right, and putting it into a fund to distribute checks and or other forms of aid to illegals in New Jersey, why not focus on things that, maybe affect, citizens, homeowners? So, for example, it was reported recently that the average property tax bill in the state of New Jersey went up to now $9,112. Now, that's up $159 from 2019. Now, here's a novel idea for the governor and for Democrats, and more so, the social justice clowns and all the woke fools and the compassion mongers in the legislature, right? Hey, check this out. And again, you don't even need a PhD in political science like I have, to even figure this out. But if you took that $40 million and instead applied property tax relief, or maybe, issued a property tax relief check to homeowners and, citizens, guess what you'll do, Governor Murphy and Democrats in the legislature? You'll be helping approximately 4,389 homeowners. Oh my God, what a novel idea, right? But instead, you know what? The governor and the left here in the state feel that we should be helping illegals more before citizens. And again, folks, priority as always are misplaced here in the Garden State. Now, it doesn't help the fact that we have, bleeding heart organizations like Make the Road New Jersey and check this one out, the New Jersey Alliance for Immigrant Justice. Bro, you can't make this up with some of these acronyms here, okay? And all these left-wing groups that somehow continue to have the ear of the governor, and they bitch and moan with their usual sob stories to the legislature about how unfair it is to illegals. Oh, I'm sorry, undocumented people, whatever the term is. And you know what? For me, now listen, I get a lot of grief all the time on my social media in person whenever someone says, I listen to your monologues and a lot of times you make sense and sometimes you lack compassion or you lack humanity. I don't like any of those things. I'm just pragmatic and I'm just commonsensical, okay? Folks, listen, what I care about in New Jersey right now, the fact that we have the highest property tax in the country, the fact that the recent gas tax that was implemented might be, supplemented or replaced by a mileage tax, because that's what liberals do in New Jersey in the legislature, right? They think we print money, right? And it's funny because a lot of the legislators in Trenton, you would think that hopefully they'd have like economics degrees or something about public policy or planning, and they don't, which is why you keep seeing these awful fiscal policies coming out of Trenton, all right? And again, ladies and gentlemen, you know what? Listen, I'll say this very bluntly. I don't care how it sounds. I care about citizens. Okay, I don't care about illegals. I really don't. And that's not meant to be mean-spirited. That's not meant to be, inhumane. Folks, we have to be practical here. We have to be commonsensical. Okay, we just can't bend over and accommodate everybody just because we hear sob stories. Okay, property tax relief, I would argue, should be at the highest point of the agenda for Governor Murphy and for, again, newsflash, Democrats who run the legislature. Okay, Democrats have a 25 to 15 majority in the state Senate and a 52 to 28 majority in the state Assembly. And for whatever reason, they think that, I don't know, coddling illegals in New Jersey, like a mother who's just breastfeeding a newborn, seems to be, that's the best way to go. That's how we create a more fair and just New Jersey. I don't care about a fair and just New Jersey. I care about not going bankrupt here in the state. I care about filling up my gas tank without, donating a kidney. I care about paying my property taxes on my home because they continue to sort of rise. And again, I don't blame the local municipalities. I blame Trenton because they don't understand what the word budget is. I don't know. It seems like a foreign word in the dictionary to them. And as I said before, these left-wing organizations, take your pick. They're there on the steps of the Capitol building in Trenton saying, si se puede, or ahora mismo. Folks, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the sob stories. I care about helping citizens. I care about helping homeowners. And chances are, folks, if you're here illegally, none of those demographics apply to you. And those are the people that the governor and the legislature should be helping out right now. Again, I just solved your problem. Take $40 million, cut a property tax relief check to citizens. You know that word citizens? It's in the dictionary. Yeah, right before clueless, which as we all know, many in the left here in the state continue to be. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. In the latest edition of the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every week on Blog Talk Radio by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, was West New York Commissioner and fellow PhD, Cosmo Cirillo. We spoke for over an hour on a plethora of different issues, and here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, as someone who was born and raised in West New York, it brought enormous pride to hear that the famous Miller Stadium, where Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig once set foot in, and even Bruce Springsteen filmed the video Glory Days in the mid-'80s at the historic Miller Stadium in West New York, well, it got a new makeover, and it's completely renovated, and there was a grand reopening this past weekend, again by Mayor Gabriel Rodriguez and the Board of Commissioners and many dignitaries in attendance on sort of a gloomy day, but you know what? It didn't dampen the spirits of what this historic venue means to the town of West New York. Let's hear what you have to say about it.
So, Cosmo, let's get to some town business here in West New York. I know last weekend, as someone who was born and raised in West New York, who's a proud Memorial Tiger, I think for a lot of West New Yorkers, whether they're lifelong residents or people that have just been in the community for some years, just seeing Miller Stadium reopening last week, the grand reopening that touched me, seeing that advertisement. Even though the weather was a little gloomy, it did not damper the enthusiasm in the ballpark. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. It was such a beautiful day in the town of West New York, regardless of the clouds and some sprinkles of rain, but I can't tell you how amazing it was to be able to get on that field with so many people from throughout the time in West New York that are former players, people that have played in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, all the way to our current Memorial High School varsity team that was there celebrating their very first game at the new Miller Stadium. It's been a tremendous accomplishment for the town to be able to put the work in to make that happen for our children. It's a historic location. It's probably one of the few stadiums left throughout the state where our kids have the ability to go there and be proud of the place that they call home. So I give a lot of accolades to the Mayor and Board of Commissioners for really putting that project at the forefront of this administration. You probably recall going back a little over 2 years now, Mayor Rodriguez, then Commissioner Rodriguez, Commissioner Guzman, and myself were huge proponents of this project, in addition to a couple of other field improvements around town. But Miller Stadium was really a highlight for what we wanted to get done, and I'm very happy to say that that project is completed, at least in this first phase. We've got our Babe Ruth baseball players playing on there this week, so it's a really exciting time for baseball here in the town of West New York.
It was certainly a glorious day for West New Yorkers, both old and young, that, again, have seen the evolution of Miller Stadium and, quite frankly, what it means to the community. But you know what? To get to that point of renovations, it was quite a tedious and laborious process, and Commissioner Cirillo detailed it for us during the interview. Let's hear what he had to say about this. Take
us back a little bit into what went into this. I mean, how do how is money appropriated for this? I mean, even listen, pre-COVID, sometimes budgets are very, very tight in these municipalities in Hudson County, and I'm assuming this project took a large chunk of money, and it took a lot of planning. Walk us through a little bit what sort of the timeline of this project from sort of like the beginning to end.
Sure, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the three of us were enthusiastic. As you may have mentioned, maybe not today, but in a former podcast, as Public Affairs Commissioner, I oversee the Recreation Department in the town of West New York, so recreation is near and dear to my heart. We've consistently done evaluations of our current fields and our rec facilities around town, and it was evident that there needed to be improvements and upgrades made. There was significant maintenance that needed to be done, and over time, fields without proper maintenance are extremely difficult to play on and become a safety issue for the children that are playing on those fields. So when I brought it to Commissioner Rodriguez and Commissioner Guzman at the time, they were 100% behind the idea of making sure that we made these improvements, not only because we wanted the children to be able to play on a state-of-the-art field, but also for the safety aspect of ensuring that they had a safe and fun environment to be able to have recreational services at. So going back now a little over 2 years now, we brought the idea to the full board. There was a disagreement, I would say, between allocation of funds. As you mentioned, budgets are about prioritizing, and not everybody agrees on where money should be spent. But because of the safety aspect of it, because of the historical value of the stadium, we felt it was important to make this a priority for this administration. And it's one of the things we campaigned on and one of the things we wanted to bring to West New York. And right after taking office in May of 2019, that was one of the first things that we started working on as an administration. So not only did we have to work on trying to budget the allocated amount that the West New York budget was going to handle, but also look at many other funding sources such as grants. So we had an opportunity to work with the County of Hudson and some open space funding in order to bring this project together and get a bunch of grants together in order to make sure that we had enough money within the budget and not solely from the budget to be able to make this project happen. And I'm happy to say that we were able to accomplish that. Took a little longer than expected because of COVID and delays, but we're here at the finish line for Phase 1, and it's a really great feeling.
So when you talk about Phase 1, obviously it's what we saw this past weekend. What can you sort of share with the audience about what Phase 2 will entail, or is that still not been finalized, so it's not perhaps not possible to sort of elaborate on?
No, I can absolutely talk about Phase 2. So Phase 2 is going to be the installation of a brand new scoreboard for the field. We're also going to be doing some upgrades to the bathrooms, concessions, and the stadium seating. So it's going to be more along the lines of the actual stadium facility itself that are going to get improvements. So Phase 1 was the focus on the field and the turf. Phase 2 is now going to be the structure of the stadium.
Undoubtedly, planning and budgets always are an issue in municipalities, and of course, West New York is no different. And lastly, we talked about a problem that has been plaguing the town of West New York for decades, and that is parking. As we all know, the town of West New York is one of the more densely populated municipalities in all of Hudson County, if not the state of New Jersey. And mayor after mayor and administration after administration for years have struggled with addressing the parking problem, and of course, Commissioner Cirillo addressed it just a little bit more and what's going on right now with this administration. Let's hear what he had to say.
We know that it's a problem going back forever, even probably before our lifetimes, where, we live in a densely populated area and parking can be absolutely torturous. And we know that during COVID, obviously, when people were told to stay home and obviously they weren't moving, they weren't going anywhere, people left their cars parked where they left them, right? But as we're getting back to normalcy, it's not a problem it happened before COVID, obviously. But what can you share with our audience today, though, in the sense of what is the administration doing? What's realistic? What isn't realistic? Because, when you read social media, everyone has an opinion about, well, this is how you fix the parking problem in West New York. And people are always willing to offer their 2 cents. And again, we all know opinions are like rectums, everyone has one. But the problem is this, though, that at the end of the day, sometimes some plans aren't feasible. And when we're talking about parking in such a densely populated township like West New York, some things, you know what, they're pragmatic and they make sense and some don't. Let's separate fact from fiction here, Cosmo.
Sure. No, parking, if you go around town, and I can tell you the people I speak with, you knock on doors, the number one issue they want to talk about is parking. And I can tell, as a lifelong resident of this town, I understand the parking situation. I see it firsthand. You know, people talk to me on a daily basis about it. And this administration has really made parking a priority for what we want to see done before our term is complete at the end of 2023. So over the last 2 years since being in office, I'm proud to say that we have really taken a dive into the parking situation here in town, and we have 3 brand new parking decks that are planned to be built within our tenure. One on 52nd Street off of Bergline Avenue, one on 57th between Bergline Avenue and Palisade Avenue, and the other on 66th and Park Avenue. So we're excited to be able to bring those parking decks into the communities that really need them within our town. And obviously, it has not been as quick a process as we would like. Typically, when you talk to people that are in government, they always tell you government wheels turn slowly, but it's been slower than usual only because of the fact that COVID has been a major priority for us over the last year and has been, as with all other projects, delaying a lot of what has been taking place. But recently we've put a real focus on making sure that those decks are going to become a reality for our residents, and our residents that I've spoken to are very excited about us being able to bring those decks to them and really add a large number of parking spaces to an area that would otherwise not have them.
It was a great interview with Commissioner Cosmo Cirillo, and once again, you can listen to it in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking to Hudson. These are the exclusives I'll continue to bring you every week on Blog Talk Radio, and no one else, folks, in Hudson County media is hosting a podcast like this, and I'm proud to say that, and we'll continue doing that for the foreseeable future. And now to some local stories for your consideration. And now let's go to Hudson County's largest city, Jersey City, and a shout out to Michael Shurin with Real Garden State for his report on this story. Now, apparently, an anonymous internal affairs complaint has accused attorney Paul Scalia of being involved in a ticket fix scheme for Jersey City police officer Richie Lopez, supposedly on behalf of Deputy Chief Edgar Martinez, per sources speaking with Real Garden State. Now, what makes this story significant is the following, is that the dismissal of a moving violation summons issued by one Jersey City police officer to another has raised allegations, though, of ticket fixing inside the Jersey City Municipal Court. Now, again, according to the story in Real Garden State, notably the allegations of impropriety include a former assistant municipal prosecutor that recently became a municipal court judge under a cloud of controversy. Now, Paul Scalia, nominated for municipal court judgeship, obviously, you know what, raised some concerns with other media outlets, which included the Jersey City Times. So, for example, on April the 1st of this year, Mayor Stephen Fulop announced that he was nominating attorneys Rahat Chata and Paul Scalia to become Jersey City Municipal Court judges. Now, according to the mayor's press release, Scalia served as an assistant municipal prosecutor for 20 years before his nomination. Now, 2 weeks after Mayor Fulop's announcement, the Jersey City Times published reports that highlighted political donations to Team Fulop and questioned the residency of both nominees. Now, relative to Chada and her household, which made a total of $19,880 in contributions to Fulop's campaign between 2012 and 2019, the report stated, quote, Scalia and a family member made a series of smaller but very significant donations to Fulop and his team, totaling $3,525. Now, though it could not be definitively established, though, the recent report by the Jersey City Times suggests that Scalia is likely a resident of Cranford, New Jersey, a municipality down in Union County, rather than Jersey City, which would violate a requirement for municipal court judges. Now, specifically, the article states, quote, the most widely accepted locate and research tool available to government, law enforcement, and commercial customers has Paul Scalia living in a house owned by Roseanne Scalia in Cranford. Multiple other online sources have him living there as well. 2015, the Township of Cranford appointed Scalia as, quote, alternate municipal prosecutor, and Scalia's Mercedes SUV was seen parked at the Cranford House yesterday afternoon. Folks, this is a story that kind of makes me just remember why at times we hate municipal governments and sometimes how things can be so shady. Now, I don't have a law degree, but you don't need one to understand that, folks, optics are perception. And there's some bad optics here. Now, what the Phillips administration will be doing about this and whether or not there'll be a thorough investigation remains to be seen. But it's my understanding that if that is exactly the statute here in the state of New Jersey, then you know what? Then people who are going to be municipal judges or appointed to be municipal judges need to abide by them. They're not above the law, right? Because if they're trying to make sure that we follow the law, well, they need to follow it too by example. So we'll keep you posted on this story. And again, a shout out to Michael Shurin with Real Garden State for his investigative reporting on this story, which apparently isn't going away anytime soon. And now let's move south to the peninsula city of Bayonne, where ahead of a recent Bayonne City Council meeting, where the council would come to vote on 2 introduced ordinances that would ultimately condemn the Bayonne Medical Center property through eminent domain. Now, City Council President Sharon Ash Nagroski has announced her intent to motion to reject the ordinances. Now, CarePoint Health has been selling its assets, which include the Bayonne Medical Center, as well as the Hoboken University Medical Center and Christ Hospital in the Jersey City Heights. Now, in November of 2019, Avery Eisenreich, owner of the nursing home operator Alaris Health, purchased the real estate of the Bayonne Medical Center and 70% of the real estate of also the Hoboken Medical Center. Now, CarePoint has been searching for an operator for the facilities ever since, signing a sale agreement with the Bayonne Medical Center Hospital LLC to operate the Bayonne Medical Center. Now, meanwhile, also, the Hudson Regional Hospital in Secaucus has closed on the purchase of the real estate of the Bayonne Medical Center for $76 million. Wow. And it's in contract with Eisenreich to acquire the Hoboken University Medical Center for $144 million. Now, when the sales close between the Hudson Regional Hospital and Eisenreich, Hudson Regional intends to operate the hospitals, not the BMC Hospitals LLC, which ultimately, folks, this has sparked a war between the two entities over who will operate the hospitals. Now, the battle has largely played out in court. However, the litigation has since been consolidated and is still active. Now, amid any recent legal developments that might surface, the Hudson Regional Hospital terminated CarePoint Health's lease as an operator of the Bayonne Medical Center through a notification served on December 31st of 2020, changing its status month to month pending eviction procedures. At its April meeting, the Bayonne City Council introduced an ordinance to condemn the hospital through eminent domain. Now, eminent domain proceedings began in May of 2020 when the Hudson County Board of Commissioners unanimously voted to approve 3 resolutions authorizing the Hudson County Improvement Authority to begin the process. Folks, this is a story I think that has a lot of layers, and it is certainly creating a divide between City Council President Nagroski and Mayor Jimmy Davis. Now, one of the things is, again, Council President has mentioned, is that she's hoping that this will end the ordeal and hopefully stop the litigation. But this is where it gets even more interesting because, again, the mayor has been very silent on this issue. And Jimmy Davis, again, has a lot on his plate since he's under the microscope after what happened with his recent naming of Mr. Sampson to the HCDO ticket for the 31st Legislative District. But now Bayonne residents are up in arms about, well, what's going to happen with the Bayonne Medical Center? Bayonne residents, need available health care. They need a hospital nearby. Driving to Secaucus or driving, into the Jersey City Heights or driving all the way into North Hudson, into North Bergen at the Palisades Medical Center, that isn't an option for Bayonne residents. And certainly crossing the bridge into New York probably isn't a better option either. So I'm hoping that Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis and the City Council can come to some sort of agreement on this because, folks, at the end, the ones taking the loss are Bayonne residents. And yes, these are some big numbers we're talking about. These are millions of dollars that we're reading in recent reports. Folks, again, at the end of the day, it's about people's lives. And I'm hoping that at some point, the City Council, and the mayor can come to an agreement about what's really important in the Peninsula City. We'll keep you posted on this, but I'll tell you, it's a story that definitely has some traction. Lastly, let's move a little north to the Mile Square city of Hoboken, where, here's a great sign that we're getting back to normal. Now, the Pilsner House and Beer Garden announced its summer kickoff with 3 days of music, food, and drinks at its Hoboken location. Now, quote, Rock the House will take place Friday through Sunday, May the 21st through May the 23rd. Now, Grand Street will be closed between 15th Street and 16th Streets in northern Hoboken and will be turned into a summer stage and outdoor concert festival for the weekend. Now, for example, artists scheduled to perform that weekend include The Bruce Show on Friday, May 21st, No Discipline on Saturday, May 22nd, and certainly as well as Toy Machine. And on Sunday, groups include the Fuzzy Lemons, the Groove Band, and Luke and the Troublemakers. So, folks, if you're a local, you know these bands. They've performed at various festivals and outdoor concerts for years, not just in Hudson County, but throughout the state of New Jersey. But, when I read this, man, it brought a smile to my face because it's reminding us that, after a year of being home and not being able to enjoy, the summer months, like even last year, folks, we were, limited, of course, but now with vaccine rollouts, hopefully we'll be heading towards herd immunity at some point, and people are just beating this virus. You know what? The fact that seeing this in Hoboken, makes me excited. It's May, Memorial Weekend's just around the corner. It's getting a little bit warmer. You want to be outside. You want to just, you want to go day drinking. You want to hang out with friends. You want to, just BS and just talk about what's going on in your lives, and hopefully everyone's safe and healthy. But more importantly, you want to just be out. You want to be enjoying the things that we all used to enjoy during the summer months before COVID, whether it was the Arts and Music Festival, again in Hoboken, which again, we don't know if that'll happen later on this summer, or other outdoor venues or activities. But you know what? Seeing this right before Memorial Day in Hoboken has got to be something that you definitely want to visit. And again, as someone who's visited the Pilsner House and Beer Garden, it's a great venue in Hudson County, and it's one of those venues that I was really, really surprised was able to survive during the pandemic, because as we all know, various businesses, restaurants, bars, clubs, whatever you want to call them, these venues, you know what, they got the axe during COVID-19, but it's good to see that this one was able to survive, and hopefully we'll get a great turnout. Yes, I'm sure people will have to wear masks. There'll be some aspect of social distancing required, of course, folks, but you know what? This is something that, hey, we're getting back to normal. And you know what? In 2021, that's a great thing. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media, the Hudson Media Group, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com and www.livestream.com/HMGTV. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group on Facebook and, of course, follow them on both Instagram and Twitter. And remember, folks, on Wednesday nights live at 9 p.m., you can check out the 4-time award-winning podcast, Talkin' the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talkin' the Hudson. Recent guests have included Jersey City Times publisher Aaron Morrill, tap into Jersey City columnist Al Sullivan, Western Commissioner Cosmo Cirillo, Jersey City Council candidate and Chief Prosecutor Jay Cudnut, and many more. Again, these exclusives you won't hear anywhere else every week on Blog Talk Radio. Folks, check out my own social media as well on Instagram at Professor Fernando Uribe. If you enjoy politically incorrect memes, sports, pro wrestling, politics, whatever, my stories are definitely worth checking out. And also hit me up on Twitter when you can, folks, at NoFilterUribe. And also, again, check out Talking Politics on Facebook and also on Instagram as well. And always remember, folks, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I'm New Jersey's premier journalist and top 100 Latino in 2021 via the Latino Spirit Online magazine, Fernando Uribe, saying so long and thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.